Balto and the Great Race, Chapter 12. Nome again. Within moments, Cason, Balto, and the other dogs were surrounded by well-wishers. Helping hands unharnessed the dogs and untied the crate of antitoxin. The citizens of Nome cheered Cason, but he kept shaking his head. It was Balto, he kept telling them. It was Balto the whole time. Balto found the trail. Balto got them through. If it had been left to him, Cason said, they would still be lost in the blizzard. Inside the hospital, the musher knelt over the crate as Dr. Welch eagerly pried it open. In spite of the accident, none of the vials were cracked or broken. Nurse Morgan had the syringes ready for the first doses of the serum. Dr. Welch's and Nurse Morgan's expressions changed from excitement to concern when the first vial was taken out. The serum was frozen solid. They spent an anxious few minutes carefully thawing it. The serum seemed to be all right, but only time would tell. Within the day, it became obvious that the serum had remained effective in spite of having been frozen. Up and down the streets of Nome, in their houses and in the hospital, sick children were beginning to get better. The epidemic was finally under control. It had been just over 5 days since the serum had been carefully unloaded at the train station in Nenana. The entire country had followed the unfolding drama in newspaper reports. Word was triumphantly telegraphed across the United States that the relay teams had been victorious. The children of Nome were safe at last. Chapter 13. Around the Country. Balto was the most famous dog in America. He was given a special medal. People all over the country sent requests for appearances and ceremonies. When Leonard Seppala got back to Nome with Togo and his team, he had mixed feelings about Balto's newfound fame. Togo had pulled Seppala's sled over 250 miles round trip in the course of the relay. Seppala felt Togo should also be given some credit. It was a difficult situation for the famous musher. He felt as if one of his children had been rewarded over another. He was extremely proud of Balto, but for the rest of his life he felt a pang of regret when he remembered how Togo's achievements had not been recognized. On February 9th, 1925, the New York Times ran a story that caused hearts to sink across the country. The headline read, "Balto, dog hero of the Dash to Nome, is dead." In fact, Balto was very much alive and in extremely good health. The newspaper had made an enormous mistake, reporting the death of Balto and most of the team from lung damage caused by the blizzard. The report was quickly corrected. In Nome, Leonard Seppala received an offer from a filmmaker who wanted to make a movie about Balto and the team. With Seppala's permission, Gunnar Cason took Balto and the dogs to Washington State where the movie was filmed. There was a good deal more to come. It seemed almost every town in America wanted Balto to pay a visit. In New York City, the unveiling of Balto's statue was scheduled for December 15, 1925. Balto and the musher traveled there for the ceremony, and Balto spent a curious moment staring at his bronze image, which towered over the crowd. Over the next year, Balto and the team crossed the country twice, making appearances at lecture halls and vaudeville houses alongside their musher. There was rarely an empty seat to be had when the famous dogs were on stage. Demand was still high a year later, but it was decided the dogs needed a rest. Traveling from state to state and visiting the eager crowds was hard for the animals. It was nothing like the life they had led in Alaska. In Los Angeles, the dogs were sold to a small museum. Reluctantly, Gunnar Cason returned to Alaska alone. The dogs did not do well in Los Angeles. Balto was bewildered. The crowds were gone, and so was Cason. For the first time in his life, Balto did not know what was expected of him. Unhappy and uncomfortable in Los Angeles' warm climate, the dogs grew thin and sickly. They had been in the museum for over a month when a man named George Kimball, a vacationer from Cleveland, Ohio, stopped in for a visit. Like most Americans, Kimball knew all about the heroic deeds of Balto and his team. He was horrified to see the dogs looking so unhappy. Kimball leaped into action. Through an exchange of telegrams with friends in Cleveland, he organized a committee to raise funds to buy the dogs. They would need over $2,000. This was an enormous amount of money in 1927. An appeal was made to the children of Cleveland. If each child donated all of his or her pennies to the fund, it might be possible to reach the goal. Across Cleveland, children emptied their piggy banks and sent their pennies in. There wasn't much time. Kimball needed to come up with the money within several weeks. He wasn't sure that Balto and his team's health would even hold up for that long. On the date Balto's owner said the money was due, as the last handfuls of pennies were coming in, the fund was counted. It totaled $2,342.